To understand the technology behind MindNudger AI, let's please first talk a little bit about the brain. We all know that the brain is where we make our decisions. This is where we experience our feelings, and also we have our emotions. We've learned a lot about the brain in our human history. We did all sorts of experiments. We took it out of the skull, sliced it up, looked at it under the microscope. We drugged it, electrocuted it, scanned it in so many ways, psychoanalyzed the responses of people. And lately, in the last few decades, we had the chance to actually try and build imitations of the brain, and in software build tiny little neurons and connect them together and just see how that works. That really is useful because we can test our theories, see whether they actually work, and also kind of just have a first glance view of what actually is happening when neurons are connected. And also doing that, this is a great way of producing one kind of AI. There are many kinds of AIs, but neural networks is just one. Okay, so when we look inside the brain, you all know this, we will find 100 billion neurons. And these are connected in a meaningful way. That's very important, in a meaningful way. And these connections are extremely complex. I mean, one neuron can be connected to 100,000 other neurons. And somehow, when they come to life, as we all know, we gain our consciousness, we have our perception of the world, we have our memories, we learn knowledge, and also we make our decisions. It would be wonderful to have a really good relationship with our brains, that if we can somehow find ways to collaborate and work more closely with the brain, then we can't help but sense that this could really give us superior ways of learning and increase our potential. There's one problem though, and this is in the numbers and the volume of data that is happening with the brain. I mean, just look at 100 billion neurons, 100,000 connections each, 8 billion people in the world if we want to help everybody in the world. I mean, these numbers are really not for us. I mean, that's way beyond what we can handle. Now we've got the technology where technology can handle those numbers. Technology has the ability, the power to handle that insane amount of data. And this leads us with the question that, so what can we do with it then? How can we use that power and the knowledge we have built up about the brains to come up with something which could actually help us reach a much higher of our potential? And it took us many, many years, the MindNudger AI team, but finally we have identified 3 key elements to solve this problem. And the first key element is the concept pyramid. The second one is the oriented focus situation. And the third one is concept proficiency maps. I mean, these are all horrible words, but it is just to refer to what's behind them. And let me explain, and hopefully when I explain you will find it that actually it is pretty straightforward and makes very good common sense. So let's start first with the concept pyramid. The concept pyramid comes from the realization of how the brain stores knowledge and how neurons are connected. For you to understand the concept pyramid, just let's assume that we are trying to teach somebody something, and let's call this the tip of the pyramid. Okay, so whatever up there, this is what we are trying to get through, this is what we are trying to teach. Now, it's easy to see that for them to gain that knowledge, they will have to have a pretty good grasp of the underlying concepts that that whole knowledge is built upon. However, if you look closely, it's very easy to see that for every concept, there are further underlying concepts that is built upon. So actually, if you go down from the tip of the pyramid that you're actually trying to teach, you can go down to the very foundations of human understandings. And I'll give you a very, very simple example, but this is good enough, I think, to explain what the concept pyramid is. Let's assume that I'm trying to send a message to someone and say, my father has an apple tree. Okay, it's a silly sentence, but it's good enough for the purpose. Now, for the other person to understand the message, to make any sense of it, they would have to have a pretty good grasp of the words, my father has an apple and tree. Pretty obvious. For them to read the words, obviously they would have to be familiar with the letters M, Y, and so on. Now, that's good enough. However, to see where it can go wrong, let's assume that they are not quite familiar with the word has. So they get the sentence and they try to make up what on earth I was messaging them about, and they think, okay, well, maybe it's is. So now in their minds, the actual sentence will read, my father is an apple tree. Okay, well, that doesn't really make much sense, but then let's assume further on, already we are quite off in our communication, but let's assume further on that they do not have a good grasp of the word tree. So they say, okay, well, it could be some kind of company role I'm talking about. So they say, my father is an Apple director. Apple director, what is it? Oh, it could be Apple corporations. Oh, his father is an Apple director. That's very, very different, even just small difference in a way in the concept pyramids we built, but still we are already way off in our communication. And this happens very often in teaching and everywhere else. Now, the second key element behind the technology is the oriented focus situations. We experience it all the time that we find it hard to learn. It's very difficult for our brains to learn. But actually that is not quite true. The brain wants to learn. Even more, the brain can't help but learn. So much so that for us to distinguish one moment from the other, we already learn. So whatever situation the brain is put into, the brain will pick up details and then connect them in whatever way, and it is already learning. So the problem is not really that we don't want to learn. The problem is that we don't learn what we want the brain to learn. So this is what oriented focus situations are about. How can we create, specifically design, situations when the brain will pick up the details that are essential for our concept pyramid? Otherwise, it will pick up whatever random knowledge we give them, and that might not be beneficial. Now, one of the best ways to create oriented focus situations is through games. Because in games, we have the power, we are talking about video games here, we have the power to create a micro little universe, and we can control the details that are in that, and then we put the brain in a situation when it can pick up the necessary essential details and build the knowledge that is necessary. Also in an online environment, we can use texts, videos, audios, images, diagrams, and very importantly, learning tribes. And we can even use humans like facilitators to give either feedbacks or to give trainings, lectures, whatever. But the whole point is to get people, the participants, in oriented focus situations when they pick up the essential details to build up whatever knowledge we want them to learn. Now, the third key element is the concept proficiency map. It is easy to see that once we have built a concept pyramid for a certain sprint or tripod, we want to map where a certain person is, and this is where AI comes in, because it's impossible. How on earth could we possibly map it for thousands, millions, billions of people? How on earth could we possibly remember, oh yes, they are familiar with that concept, however, they don't know the other one? So this is really where technology comes in with this almost infinite knowledge that through the oriented focus situations, the AI can pick up whether certain concepts are there, whether there's a good grasp, a good understanding of that concept in that individual, let's say the green bits, and the white ones that either we still need proof that they have a proper good proficiency in that concept, or no, they don't yet, and we have to nudge them